I'm very excited to be here with Dr. Miyamura. Dr. Miyamura and I met at a AARP event in Hilo, and just from our initial chat at the event, and Dr. Miyamura shared some really helpful, very practical tips at the event, and then we got to talk more afterwards. And she just had so much to share that connected with techniques that can really help and support people who are living with dementia and their care partners. And so I wanted to, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to have this webinar and have her in Hilo and me on Oahu come together and share the tips and things that she has. So I wanted to ask everyone, when you signed up for this, when you signed up for this this webinar, dental challenges, I'm sure there were some things that you had in mind, like, oh yeah, I really, the person I'm helping support will never brush their teeth, or just will not this or will not that, or, you have like specific problems. So I wanted to just have this short kind of, not greatest hits, but very common challenges that people who are living with dementia and their care partners might encounter, whether, unable to do the usual things we do our whole lives. For me, it's like brush, floss, and rinse with mouthwash. Maybe that's not happening, or maybe steps in that are not happening, or maybe my motor control is, I'm trying to do it, but I'm just not doing it, quote unquote, correctly anymore, or I'm making things worse by the way I'm doing it. I just flat out refuse to do it. I'm having trouble going to the dentist. Maybe I have dentures or other things. I can't tolerate having those things in there anymore. I can't tolerate physical help. And maybe I'm having trouble communicating pain or discomfort. So those are just some of the common things. And what I really found helpful normally when I do these kinds of webinars and talk about the brain changes that are happening for the whole brain, you can see in this slide here, the one on the left is someone who passed away unexpectedly through an accident without any brain disease, and the brain on the right is someone who passed away from 10 years plus of living with Alzheimer's disease. But it's a whole brain disease, not just the memory centers, and affects all the parts that today on our topic was oral care. And so especially this last bullet point on this slide about parts of our body that are very sensitive. And this is where, in the event that Dr. Miyamura was at with me, I was talking about how our nose and mouth and fingertips and toes and genital areas are very sensitive anyway. But as the disease progresses, they become, like if you turn the volume up on something, hypersensitive. And so even basic touches and basic sensations of the brush, the toothpaste, become too much, and I can't tolerate it. And so it was right on that topic, right, Dr. Miyamura, that you raised your hand and you said, I have some practical things. Like, right, I'm a dentist. And boy, it really came together, and I'm very excited to be able to share that. So some of the things, we're going to start the conversation with Dr. Miyamura in a second, but these are some of the basic things that we'll be talking about. And in the slides, you'll see each one has specific tips, but we'll be talking about more than that as we go along too. So you can put your questions into the chat as we go, and we put these slides into the chat as well. We put the slides into the chat as well, and they will be sent out afterwards too. So without further ado, Dr. Miyamura, this is the thing you said to me that really stuck out.
Before you get started, can I just ask you to slow down just a tad
Sure.
bit? Thank you so much.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
folks, I did put the captioning on if you're having trouble hearing, but you can absolutely turn the captioning off by clicking on the 3 dots to the right where it says more. You can turn those captions off.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me know.
Is it my turn now?
Yes, Dr. Miyamura, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. Yeah, so you were saying this is what really turned you on. They use the least amount of energy to get the maximum good results in the least amount of time. That's because we're all basically well, I like to say that I'm lazy, but I like to be real efficient. I don't like to waste energy. So this is I've been practicing for almost 40 years as a dentist, and I was a dental assistant before then. So I've had quite a lot of experience and a lot of time to think about what it takes to actually clean your teeth. So when I heard you say that, like the nose and the mouth get really sensitive, then it just really struck me. I've been telling my patients for many, many years to use a soft or extra soft brush. Now, the reason I tell people that is that lots of times when we were growing up, we were taught either, hold on, I have my props, either to brush like this, or when we were young, it was brush up on the lowers, brush down on the uppers. And that only worked for about a day. And when you were told this, you were probably about 11 or 12 years old. And then nobody's ever told you ever since then anything else. But all toothbrushes are not created equal. Some manufacturers have soft bristles and they have one kind of handle, and the soft bristles in a different handle don't feel quite as soft. So I have actually experimented a lot and found lots of different brands and tried lots of different brands over my career, and even had lots of patients' feedbacks. And I like to do extra soft because extra soft is very forgiving. Like you can goof up on how you brush without doing a lot of damage. But the reason I like to use extra soft is most people actually press too hard when they brush. Think about it for a second. If you took your hand and you put your brush here, most people, if you brush like this, it actually feels as if you're really brushing. You can feel the bristles kind of rough. So what I tell people to do is place your brush on the skin and then gently press and rub. Just like if you had a paper cut, you would never brush across that paper cut because it would just tear the skin open. But if you press on that paper cut, just gently rub, just massage it. It just feels really soothing. So when you have people who have either because they haven't brushed, they have swollen red gums. The gums are extra sensitive. There's a lot of inflammation. They will fight. And you can do this on your own teeth as well, right? You can brush, and most people, when they brush, they're using this muscle here. So try it for a second. If you just place your brush on your skin here and gently rub back and forth, you're using your wrist and you're using your forearm, not your large muscle. Now, the other thing is, if you are not taught to brush up on your lowers and down on your uppers, you are taught to brush in small circles. So when I ask people to show me their small circles, how large a circle do you think that circle is? Most people will give me a circle about the size of a quarter or about the size of a nickel, and there is no tooth in the mouth that is that big. Teeth are smaller than size of a dime. That means that your circles have to be that small. Think about it for a second. So if you were taking a brush and you were, say, cleaning around the faucet area, do you use big strokes to brush around the faucet? Probably not. Use my props here. Okay. So what I want you to do on these is, if you take your brush, the general guideline is if you put the brush at about the level of the base of the bristles, and you lean that against the edge of the teeth, and then you tip the brush lean the brush in against the gum line. That's roughly the angle that you want to place your brush at. So you don't want to actually use the flat end of the brush against the teeth that way. You want to gently place against at an angle and then press gently and vibrate more than brush. You want to vibrate. So you're trying to massage the gum. So even if it looks as if it's way up, now if you're not anywhere near where the gum and the teeth meet, then you're way too high or way too low, as the case may be. But you want to be actually cleaning the crevice at the gum line, because that's where all of the junk accumulates. The junk accumulates at the crevices and in between the teeth. So if you have people who have receding gums and there's lots of food stuck in between, then you want to actually get the bristles to wiggle those particles of food out. Most people are not going to get cavities on this surface here. These surfaces have usually had their cavities when the people were probably in their teens or early 20s. You don't typically get cavities in this area here as an older person. Where everybody has problems will be at the gum line, in between the teeth, especially as the gums recede. Okay, so what I want you to practice doing even on yourself is place the bristles, lay the bristles, well, let's try this way here, sorry. Lay the bristles against the skin and then gently, without using your large muscles. So it's like when you're playing the violin, you don't do great big saw, well, you do some great big saw strokes, but this is not the one that we want to do for the teeth. We want to do the little ones that are basically doing like this.
Almost like vibrating,
like,
almost like a
like vibrating. Okay,
yeah.
That would be the most important thing you can do. If you have people who have large spaces and lots of food stuck in between and they will not let you get a toothbrush in there, then you can do stuff. Oh, sorry. I have my monitor on mirror because I tried to do the brushing thing, having the monitor the other way, and I got so confused left and right. So anyway, this is what they call a stimulator. And everybody used to have one of these little rubber tip things in the end of their toothbrush handles. And for most people, they used to pop them off and throw them away because the toothbrush never fit in the toothbrush holders. So this is something that you can use as kind of like a toothpick, but it's less likely to cause injury than a toothpick. And this will go in between almost every tooth into every space. So this is something that you can do. And you can, if you hold it like a pencil, just like if you hold your brush like a pencil, instead of holding your brush with a hammer grip, this is your screwdriver or your hammer grip. So get into the habit of holding your toothbrush more with a pencil grip so that you're actually less able to put a lot of force using your large muscles. Then that will make the brushing very gentle. And if you're massaging the gum, then that's actually the best thing you can do. And you can actually control the intensity and you can control the speed with which you're brushing people's teeth. So using even this, you can use this to get in between and gently just kind of trace, gently use this like an eraser. So if a patient doesn't want, or person doesn't want to use a regular toothbrush, this rubbing thing may actually feel better to them. You can get it in between. Do not jab it into the gum, whatever you do. That'll be a real loser. Okay. So what were my other tips? If you have someone who has dentures, you can still use the brush to gently massage the gums and then make sure you clean the inside as well as the outside of the denture before you, and rinse it off really well before you put it in. Same thing if the person has a partial dentures, you brush all the teeth that need to be brushed in and around, especially around the gums, especially around the teeth that are the anchors. And then make sure you clean the appliance as well. Real important. Okay. Any other tips? Okay. So this brush is the one that I use in my office. There are lots of different ones out there. This is the one that I find is the softest of the soft. They also come in extra soft. And as I said, do not use this to brush. Use the side, lean the brush against the teeth, and then brush this way. So one of the things that you can do to test yourself is if you have talcum powder or any kind of powder, I imagine even like a little bit of flour might work if that's what you have on hand. Yes, just kind of lightly dust your fingernail with it, because this mimics your teeth really well. You dust your fingernail and it will get even into the cuticle and the crevice. Take your brush, lean it against your fingernail. Better yet, if you have two fingers next to each other, it's a really good test. Lean it against your fingernail, press. Okay, see what it takes to actually get all the dust out of the cracks and crevices. If you have to scrub really hard, that'll make your cuticles and your fingers hurt. If you're brushing that hard on someone's teeth, you're going to make their gums hurt, they make the teeth hurt. And if they're really, really extra sensitive because their gums are already swollen and a little bit bleedy, then they're going to fight for their life against brushing, right?
Absolutely.
So what you want to do is you want to clean, but you want to clean gently but thoroughly. So you may practice on this if you're just a little nervous about doing this on a real person. Use this on your fingernail, then take the most sensitive finger you have. Okay, so you put a little bit of flour or stuff, and then just take your brush. So if you're using now a soft brush, you can try that. If you have a hard or medium brush, try that. See the difference in what it takes to actually, and then doing this where you're just sort of flicking the brush does not clean into the cracks and crevices. So you want to place the brush on the bottom, right, which is along the gum line. Brush, press, rub, and then see how much gets cleaned off. Now, doing the flour on your finger is harder than doing plaque on teeth and gums. Okay, so if you're not able to get all of the flour off your fingernail, don't panic. That doesn't mean that you have to do it harder. That just gives you kind of the general motor skills to clean a person's teeth.
I really like that your suggestion of trying it out and practice, because that can make all the difference to feel what, I thought this was soft, but it doesn't feel that soft. Now that I'm doing it myself, I'm like, oh, this is not a soft brush.
Right. And then when you graduate from that, do it on your own teeth. And if you make your gums hurt, well, you're definitely going to make someone else's gums hurt, because now when you're reaching across on somebody else, you're actually using more of this muscle. So you want to practice, keep your elbows down if you can. Now, if the person is taller than you, having them sit in a chair actually helps. If they're bedridden, you can have them lay down. Do not use toothpaste, though, if you have them laying down, because then they can swallow this stuff in and choke. So it's really okay to just use the brush. If you really need to have toothpaste, you can put just a little smear, not like they show on the commercials where you put a whole big glob on it. Okay. Just a little smear of toothpaste about the size of a little petit pea. Smear the toothpaste on the brush is good enough. That way, if they swallow some of it, it's not the end of the world. And then it might make them actually like the taste. Now, speaking of taste, some of the toothpaste are actually too harsh. So they may not like brushing teeth because they don't like the strong minty taste.
Mhm.
So I have found a toothpaste that's called Salavea. And right now you can only buy it from the manufacturer or from Amazon. But Salavea is a very gentle toothpaste. It's actually a formula that was the original Biotine. So Biotine has been sold and they refigured their formula. And so you don't get as good results with the Biotine. But the Salavea dry mouth toothpaste I found is actually very gentle. For me personally, it seems that I don't have to work quite as hard to get my teeth clean. And
Yeah.
I've had patients who say that it's making their gums less sensitive. So that's a really good thing. If your gums are less sensitive, that means that it's not as likely for them to fight you when you're trying to brush your teeth. And if your gums are sensitive or red or swollen or bleedy, might be a good idea to use that toothpaste for yourself as well.
And you were mentioning to me where there definitely really resonates with me about the flavors, because as the dementia progresses, you're processing flavors differently as well, and that that really strong minty makes your, like Arctic blast kind of toothpaste can be too much. And people living with dementia tend to prefer sweeter things in general, so turning down the mint. I've had family tell me that the person they're helping support did better with like a children's flavor profile toothpaste because it had a kind of false sweeter edge. But you had mentioned to me, Dr. Miyamura, once about the foaming. Can you talk about that a little bit, about toothpaste and foaming? I'd never heard about that or thought about that before.
Yeah. So a lot of the toothpaste, Crest, Colgate, Gleam, Aquafresh, Pepsodent, Arm& Hammer, AIM, so all of the real common ones, all use some degree or other of a foaming agent called sodium lauryl sulfate. It was also found a lot in shampoos. But back in 2009, a lot of shampoo companies took it out in favor of something else because sodium lauryl sulfate is a very good foaming agent. It's not listed as a foaming agent. It's called a dispersant. That means that it makes everything kind of move all over the place really well. So if you have toothpaste that have fluoride in them, you want that to actually cover all the teeth because it's supposed to be an anti-cavity ingredient. The problem is when we use fluoride in the office, we clean your teeth, then we put the fluoride on, and then we leave it on there for a minute, and then you get to spit out, you don't get to rinse, eat, or drink for half an hour. That's not how people use toothpaste. People use toothpaste, they start to throw it in there and scrub it around real quick and then rinse it out immediately. So the amount of fluoride that's in toothpaste is not, I don't think, terribly useful for fluoride, for cavity prevention, the way it's normally used. So that foaming agent makes it so everything sort of slides around a little bit better. But in a lot of people who are taking blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine, diabetes medicine, allergy medicines, gout medicine, you end up with dry mouth. When you have dry mouth, and as we get older, it's like we all know even this skin out here is a little more sensitive. I find myself getting little cuts and tears and little abrasions that I don't remember ever getting. I mean, I could just brush against something and all of a sudden there's a small little cut or something, and I'm just appalled. That means I'm really getting older too. But because the skin on your hand and your face is similar to the skin that's in your mouth, the skin will also thin a little bit. So when it dries out, it's actually more prone to injury. So when you're having a lot of blood pressure medicine, all these other medicines, your mouth dries out, you also produce less saliva. So it's harder to keep your mouth clean, and it's harder to remove some of the stuff that normally accumulates in the mouth. So when you have sodium lauryl sulfate, it is also kind of a chemical irritant. And I found a lot of patients who are very sensitive, that they don't do well. They brush, they floss, they brush, they floss 4 times a day, they brush 4 times a day, they're rinsing their mouth, they're doing everything that they're supposed to do, and it just doesn't look well. So I've even tried no toothpaste. That's kind of a mixed bag too. So I found that gentle brushing actually helps. And if you use a toothpaste that has no SLS in it, some people are helped immensely. Some people are still very much sensitive, chemical sensitive. So that means if you're using like Listerine mouthwash that has alcohol in it, that's also a drying agent. And it's also very, very strongly flavored for the most part.
Mhm.
So that actually could also make it really, really unpleasant to try to clean or rinse your mouth. So even if you dilute out the Listerine with water, it might still be way, way, way too harsh. Now, I personally cannot use Listerine, even diluted. My mouth will burn. So when Crest came out with their Pro Health mouth rinse that had no alcohol burn, and the company sent us samples. So we were all excited, right? I put a mouthful in and I spit it out immediately because even that no alcohol mouthwash burned my mouth. So you have to realize that people are individuals, that many of us are very delicate flowers. And I'm finding that my bouquet of delicate flowers is growing every day as I talk to different people. So you have to realize that just because it doesn't seem harsh to you, it's not the case, especially if you have dementia and your mouth gets more hypersensitive. You want to really try to lessen the intensity of the flavors. So the
Mhm.
salivary toothpaste is, when I first tried it, I thought, well, it's not very minty. But I've actually come to like the fact that it's not really minty, because it seems to do a better job for me anyway. So with the SLS, if you find that the SLS free toothpaste, and lots of times in kids' toothpaste, they still have SLS
Mhm.
because they like the foam.
Mhm.
I have patients who don't like to use like the gel formulas because they don't foam enough. And then the toothpaste that don't foam, patients don't seem to really like them very much because they don't think that they're cleaning, but they are cleaning just fine,
Mhm.
because it is this that's cleaning the teeth.
I think
So
those kind of external things like, oh, it's foaming and it feels super minty, kind of are things that we're accustomed to thinking, oh, that must mean it's working. Like I got a mouthful of foam and I feel like I just ate a mint. My teeth
yeah.
must be clean, you know. So
The thing though is, if you have a lot of foam though, you have to do a lot of rinsing.
yeah. Mhm.
Now, so if
Mhm.
the person is not really got the motor skills to rinse well, then
Mhm.
you don't want to use a toothpaste that has a lot of foam, and you don't want to use a
Mhm.
lot of toothpaste because that means you have to rinse more to get it all out.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, I imagine even like a wet toothbrush, if someone doesn't, because it's very common for people as they're going through their journey of dementia to pocket food, or aside from not tolerating brushing regularly, but to have food sitting around in there. Like, would even a wet toothbrush without
Oh,
any
sure,
toothpaste be useful?
sure. You can wet the toothbrush because that might actually improve the mouthfeel,
Hmm.
having something just kind of moist in there.
Hmm.
And then like what you were saying, Dorothy, where you actually have them, you can either have them, if they're able to hold your hand.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you have them hold the toothbrush and guide them, just be very careful not to use too much of this muscle in order to guide
Hmm.
their hand.
Right.
So I like to, when I brush my own teeth, I like to put my elbow down at my side and place this against my teeth, and then just gently, you can even do this on the outside of your face, yeah? I just
Yeah.
realized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So basically, you want to do this. So you're rubbing rather than
Hmm.
scrubbing across your
Right.
face, right?
Right.
Across your gums. You're actually just pressing and rubbing, moving to the next. You can only do about 2 teeth at a time. So you're only moving it across and moving it across and moving it across. Oh, sorry. I have my answering machine on. Sorry, I'm at the
That's
office.
okay. That's okay.
Okay. Now, the other thing I want to have you do is, remember when your teeth are level with the floor, typically.
Mhm.
So when you brush your teeth, mind that your brush goes level with your teeth. If the person is reclining, keep the brush level with the chewing surfaces of the teeth. So not level with the ground going this way when the teeth, yeah. So you want to keep the brush level with the chewing surfaces of the teeth as you're brushing. Don't let it tip over this way so that you're actually starting to brush this way. You want to get level with the teeth because that's where the gums sort of follow across like that. If you're brushing at this angle, you're missing a lot of the gums, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
want to
yeah.
ask you if you could talk about flossing and the
Okay.
challenges and the benefits and then the challenges around flossing as we
Well,
age and with dementia.
yes. Well, it doesn't even have to be dementia. Okay. So I I have people who just can't seem to get their hands together to floss. I have people who just don't like the feeling of flossing. And in my case, because of my arthritis, I'm having trouble even flossing way in the back. So in a case like that, I tell people, okay, if you have those floss picks and they work, that's fine. But if you're using floss picks and you have a lot of like rough old fillings or edges of crowns or you have decay, the floss will get stuck. Now you've got this floss pick that's sort of stuck and hanging out of the person's mouth. Now you have to get scissors to kind of cut yourself loose.
Oh.
Not good. All right. So in a case like that, I actually have found that this is probably about the best thing that you can use to get stuff out from in between your teeth. So you want to get from the outside in, and so you can push it between your teeth and just sort of run it around a little bit. Go from the inside as well. Push it forward from the inside and then just sort of run it around between your teeth so you can try and get food out. And then if they can rinse, then just have them rinse out. That's pretty much the best you can do as far as flossing, because flossing's an art. It's not an easy thing to accomplish. I've experimented over many years, all different ways of flossing, and there's still places in a person's mouth that are really hard for me to get at as a dentist with my headlamp and full on all my instruments and everything. There are places that's even hard for me to get at. So I don't really think that the flossing thing should bog you down. It's most important to get big chunks of food out as much as possible. If you're able to make a game, if they're able to rinse, if you can swish water, swish, like try to make lots of bubbles when you, yes. If you're able to do that, then it's good. But if you don't have the control of the mouth muscles so much, and if you try to do that, all the water just sort of squirts out, well, then you just do the best you can. Now, I would say if somebody is not able to rinse or swish, if you put a quarter teaspoon of salt, eighth or quarter teaspoon of salt in an 8-ounce cup of warm water, and you just put the water in, preferably do not swallow that water, especially if you're on blood pressure medicines, right? If you're able to just put the water in your mouth and just hold it there. If you're able to hold it there for 30 seconds, good. If you're able to hold it there for a minute, that's even better. But if you put salt water in for as long as you can, if you're able to swish That's good as well. That salt water helps to cut some of the slime. Salt is a very mild disinfectant as well, and it will help to draw some of the swelling out of the gum tissue. So whatever works.
Yeah, that I think the wonderful thing about having all these different new pieces of information and tips is gradually trying to figure out what works for the person you're trying to support. Well, for yourself, if you're making adjustments for yourself, but the person you're trying to support too, because like you said, some people might not be able to tolerate the slightest bit of mint, but other people might. So it's not a, only this way or only that way. It really takes finesse and time and detective skills to figure out what works well for that person.
Right. And even for yourself, I mean, when I had I have to have a tooth taken out because I broke it. And then so in the recovery period, I had to do the saltwater rinsing thing. So it was really interesting that you think you can put a lot of water in your mouth at one time, but you really cannot put as much as you think you can. And then if you think you can hold it in your mouth for a really long time, you cannot hold it in your mouth for as long as you think you can. So it was
Yeah.
a constant discovery of like, even from day to day, some days I'd be in such a rush and I was impatient. And even though I had my little timer set and I go, I can't wait that long. I have to spit it out.
Mhm.
Well, so realize that from day to day, even for yourself or whoever you're caring for,
Mhm.
it might be different. So you do what you can
Do
for
what
that
you can. That is very good. Very
time.
good advice.
So
Yeah.
my thing is, I want to give as many tips and different kinds of things that you can do. And then it's like you go to a buffet and you pick and choose. So even if you go to the same buffet every day, today you might feel like you want to eat this and not that. And the next day you might want to feel like you want to eat this and not that. Sometimes you want to eat a little more of this, but a little less of that. So that's probably the best tip I can give you. Every day it's like wherever you are at that time. Now I did see a question earlier that just popped up about
Yeah.
implant.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Good.
Implants you clean just the way that you clean your regular teeth. So the place where the crown on the implant meets the gum, just like where the tooth meets the gum, that's your most important place to clean. You're not going to get cavities on the biggest, fattest part of the tooth, crowns or regular teeth. Wherever your teeth are the biggest, fattest part is not the part that's going to get cavities and where it's going to have plaque built up. Where the plaque is going to build up in the nooks and crannies and the cracks and crevices.
Mhm.
Okay, I also saw a question about if you can paint anything on the teeth, and there really is nothing that you can paint on teeth. And there are several questions about electric toothbrushes.
I'm
Electric
gonna
toothbrushes.
Dr. Miyamura, I'm gonna
Yes.
pause this for 1 second. Before we get into all the questions, I just want to do a quick share of the slide, not to go over each one because you've
sure.
covered all, just so everybody can see what's on there, and then we'll go right into the questions. Let me just share screen here. So everyone will get the information that you had. So the toothpastes that you mentioned and about sodium lauryl sulfate, about the angling and different brands of soft toothpastes, your tips for actually how to do it. The visuals were the most helpful. About being in bed, all those tips are in your slides as well, and flossing, and about acid, and then about the challenge. I do remember I put these in here, Dr. Miyamura, because I love what I never knew that about plaque doesn't turn into tartar undisturbed for 10 days, like that it dries out on your teeth. Uh, but and then the overall recommendations that we had from all those tips. But I know what you said, you do what you can, and I really like that. The usual recommendation from dentists is brush twice a day and floss at least once. And for whether it's for variety of reasons, but in this case, for someone who's living with dementia, that's not always going to be possible. And for us to adjust our kind of expectations of what we're going to be able to do, because some things are just not going to be possible the same way they were before, but what can we still do? What can they still tolerate just water? Can they just rinse, like you said? That's what, so it will make a difference, even those smaller things. So, but before we go to the questions, there on your slides, you also will have some articles that you can take a look at from the U.S. Alzheimer's Association, Alzheimer's Society, and then also a Positive Approach to Care Teepa Snow video showing actual techniques, like Dr. Miyamura talked about, how to help with someone who doesn't have the dexterity anymore. That's a long one, but there's actual, and then also more tips from AARP and Teepa Snow and more dementia videos. So I'm going to stop share now, and we will go to the questions here. I wanted to ask if we could start with one that came in kind of earlier. We touched on the topic a little bit, but someone who pockets food, someone who has someone, here we go, I got here, more advanced dementia. So saying the problem isn't really the teeth themselves, but the food that isn't swallowed. Would low pressure water pick help, or any other suggestions to help get out that kind of more than just regular food debris, but pocketed food debris?
So if they're able to tolerate like a toothbrush, like extra soft toothbrush, you can actually use that brush to kind of sweep the pockets, especially like where the lips and the gum meet.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes way up here or way in the back. You can take a brush. Water picks, you need to be leaning over a sink, or you need to be in your bathtub to use a water pick, because there's no easy on or off button. You have to remember to press the button on, press the button off, and then this water comes out shooting like a jet. Okay, and that I tried using a water pick, and I'm a professional, and I really have a hard time controlling where that
it's very stable. Yeah. All these things provide stimulation and
right.
how much someone would, the skill involved, and also how much they're able to tolerate the stimulation.
Right.
Yeah.
So even with me with a water pick, I felt like I was drowning because there's so much water coming out all at once. So best thing is just to take a manual brush and gently, using kind of like a dustpan brush, and just gently sweep the
gently. Yeah.
Gentle is the operative word.
Yes, extra soft, gentle, slow,
take your time.
Motion.
Take your time. It's like breathe. If it helps you, this is from my Tai Chi training, if it helps you count out loud, in order to breathe, so you're not holding your breath and really trying to hurry up, if you count 1, you have to inhale, breathe out, 2, inhale, breathe out, 3. So if you even count the strokes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, it will help you, the caregiver, breathe. It also should help the person who's being cared for kind of calm down and relax. And that's a very audible way to help calm yourself down.
Rhythm and counting is a part of the brain that remains, music, poetry, things that are, prayer, things that are rhythmic. And that can be really helpful. Counting is a technique we use in all kinds of movement and things with help to support people living with dementia. So that's a great tip.
Anytime you feel really stressed, just remember, start counting. You don't have to count out loud. You can turn the volume to mute, but count to yourself, and it will help you to actually regulate your own breathing and your stress and loosen your muscles. So that,
Great. Can you talk a little bit about electric toothbrushes? We have a few questions on that. One of them is, is brushing with an electric toothbrush like Oral-B the same as a procedure? Any tips for using electric toothbrushes?
Okay. So I have a really good friend. She had she's not being cared for, but she actually told me that she cannot use an electric toothbrush. Even if her brother was using the electric toothbrush in the house, she would have to leave to go outside because the sound of the vibration could feel it buzzing in her head. It was she
Mhm.
didn't have to be in the same room. Now, with electric toothbrushes, there's all kinds. There's the very inexpensive, like there's the spin brush, which
Mhm. Mhm.
has the round part that spins.
Mhm.
Sometimes the bottom part kind of goes up and down.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oral-B, their brushes are usually round brush heads, but again, the brush heads are about a little bit smaller than the size of a dime. And
Mhm.
remember what I said about teeth? There's no tooth that's that big. And so if you try to clean a crevice with a brush that's too big, what happens? You fail to clean the crevice properly. So if you take your fingernail, okay, if you take your thumbnail, you can use an Oral-B brush on it. But if you take your baby finger and you use that Oral-B brush to clean along the cuticle and up the side, you'll find that the brush is way too big and you have to do a lot of maneuvering in order to get cleaned around the sides. So if you're trying to do that, that's fine if you're doing one fingernail. If you're doing a mouthful of teeth or even half a mouthful of teeth, you're taking way too much time and it's causing way too much distress. So an electric toothbrush is only a tool. It doesn't do the job unless you know what you're doing with that toothbrush. So now at the dentist, we use an electric brush that has a little rubber cup that's the size of most teeth, but we have to individually clean around into the grooves. So my take on electric toothbrushes is they're not designed to do everything. That's like, if you think the electric toothbrush is going to do everything, get into your car, start the engine, close your eyes, release the brake, put it in gear, step on the gas, okay? And then see where your car goes.
Don't do that.
Okay. So if that's the case, then electric toothbrushes, the only one that was anywhere nearly the Sonicare one, Sonicare is shaped like this, but it goes up and down really, really fast. But the brush is flat on the edge here. Flat edges do not go around curves very well. Teeth are not flat. Teeth are curved. Teeth are curved this way and they're curved top to bottom. They're sort of like a little bit like rounded squares in your back teeth, and they're almost like little torpedoes in the front. So if you have a flat edge brush that's going up and down really quickly, well, let me see this way, really quickly this way,
Mhm.
it's not cleaning around this side and it's not cleaning around this side very well. So, and then it's going really fast, and most toothbrushes make a fair amount of noise and vibration.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that vibration, believe it or not, if you tap a tuning fork or you lean your head against something that's making noise and vibrating, you don't even have to put your ear next to it. You can put your chin. Your bone conducts sound really well. So if you even lean your forehead against something, you'll be able to feel the vibration and hear the sound. Even if you have your fingers over your ears, you'll be able to hear the sound in your
Yeah,
head.
you hear it
So
from the inside.
an electric brush, that sound and the vibration could actually be disturbing.
Yeah, yeah. So all those factors again. If you're having challenges with someone who is not wanting to brush, not tolerating the assistance brushing, if they're using an electric, maybe try a non-electric and see if that makes a difference. But if someone is tolerating an electric, and so it's very, very individual. But back down to skill that you point out for all of us, for ourselves, and for when we're helping someone, we have to know what we're working tool we're using, and the skills to use it correctly would be.
Well, yeah. So if you imagine if you are brushing the teeth of a child, would you be using the same amount of force by brushing hard? You
Mhm.
typically do not brush hard or scrub a child very hard because you realize that their skin is softer and their gums are softer and everything is more sensitive.
And
So
everything's smaller.
and
Yeah,
everything's smaller. So you
yeah,
kind of have to use that mindset. I know that we're not dealing with caregiving for
Mhm.
children necessarily,
Right.
but you have to use the same kinds of skills that you would use when you're doing caregiving, because the skin is much more sensitive, because
Mhm.
their motor skills are not as developed.
Mhm.
So typically now, if you have an adult and they're taller than you, you do not want to have them standing up and you standing up next to them trying to brush their teeth. That's like a losing situation, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, that goes for all kinds of help with people, supporting people living with dementia. Getting at eye level together is so
Or
important.
like, if you notice that as dentists, we're actually not at eye level with our
You're,
patients.
you're a little
We're
above, yeah.
slightly about 6 inches higher than the
Mhm.
patients. When we recline our patients back, we can actually look straight into the mouth as they're reclined.
Mhm.
Now we do that with kids as well. If you have a kid who's like kind of feisty and everything, we'll tell the parent, so sit in your recliner, put your child on your lap so you can headlock them if you have to. And
Yep.
then you have them open their mouth. And then the other thing is, I mean, you can get, if you can't see inside, you can get an inexpensive little headlamp so
Mhm.
that you can
Mhm.
actually see inside. And then
Mhm.
you have them open the mouth and then just practice putting the brush in.
Yeah.
If I've had patients who have like cerebral palsy and they just sort of like clamp down on the toothbrush.
Mhm.
So you don't fight at that point. Yeah, you just gently, you can tell them to open and then gently kind of wiggle, just wiggle. And then the
Mhm.
muscles loosen up.
Yeah,
And then
that's very common, kind of a reflexive reaction
you want to
for
chew on
later
the
stage.
brush. So if you want to
That,
chew on the brush, you notice that, okay, you can put a whole winter's worth of food out in your cheek.
mhm.
But when you put the brush in, do not put it in right over the teeth. Pull their cheek out here for they open their mouth and you do that.
Mhm.
And then put the brush on. So even if they close their teeth down,
Mhm.
they're not actually
Not
chomping
biting,
on the
chomping.
brush.
Yeah, that reflexive reaction, in later stages of progressions of dementia, that something's in there, I don't recognize what it is. The instinct to bite down on it is pretty common. I wanted to ask, we're make sure we get a couple more questions. Someone's talking about, this would be on the, let's say, earlier end of so someone living with dementia, just someone who can still do a lot, but maybe not so well, and really wants to be independent, doesn't want any help, and maybe only brushes for a few seconds. How can we make those seconds count in a sense, or what tips for if someone is
So if
not
yes, so remember when we started with COVID and they told you should wash your hands for 20 seconds. So they said if you sang happy birthday twice,
Mhm.
that'd be about 20 seconds. So if you want to
Mhm.
maximize how long somebody's going to actually brush, you could make it a game and just say, okay, we're going to
Mhm.
brush as long as the song is on, right?
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
you might get really tired of singing happy birthday, but
Mhm.
you might actually sing. And we say we're going to sing happy birthday twice and we're going to brush your teeth for 2 rounds of happy birthday.
I like when you said weed just there, because something that I found that is helpful for everybody is like, let's do this together, whether it's singing or if you're, I want you to brush your teeth, why I'll brush my teeth, let's brush our teeth together, like and might not be 2 minutes, but it might be longer than just a few seconds. So there's like
Okay, so
and there's that mirroring too, the opportunity to follow when the person can still do it, but yeah.
so a lot of people believe that 2 minutes is like the magic
Uh-huh.
amount of time. Typically, I found that you can actually do a really thorough job of cleaning along the gum line in about anywhere from 50 seconds to a minute. Systematically, yeah. So if you
Mhm.
start from the outside along the gum line on one side, just kind of work your way along the top,
Mhm.
do the inside along the gum line, do the outside along the gum line, do the inside along the gum line. And
Mhm.
then real
Mhm.
quick over the chewing surfaces. You don't
Mhm.
need 2 minutes. 2 minutes is an eternity.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I find it an eternity sometimes too. And my toothbrush, I have a timer. I'm like, oh my God, how much longer?
Right. So even a minute seems like an eternity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just be aware
Yeah.
that if you're systematic about it, you're able to clean
Mm-hmm.
thoroughly where you need to clean. You don't
Mhm.
have to spend a long time brushing any
Mhm.
one tooth. You just want to sweep
Yeah.
carefully and get along the gum line on
Mhm.
every single tooth. And you might not get every place every single time. So that's
Right.
okay.
That's okay. Yes, it's okay. That's my approach to the question of showering too. It's okay if you don't get the whole head to toe every time. You know, we get this part this time, we get the other part next time. It's okay.
That's right.
We just have one more minute. I wanted to ask if you had any tips for uh, uh, family caregivers, care partners, when they are talking to the dentist or coming into the dentist. What kind of tips that might help them and their dentist be a real good, productive care team around the person they're trying to support with dementia? So, a family's bringing someone you know is living with dementia to your practice.
Well, I think if the person really is not able to understand instructions, I think it's fine for the caregiver to be in the treatment area with the patient. So any kind of let me see. You know, when patients come into my office, I usually like to give the patient, and then I kind of gauge to see how well they seem to be understanding things. But I also give the caregiver instructions as well. And then it's
Mhm.
really good to have things written down.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't always end up doing that. Sometimes I forget, but
Yeah.
it's always a good idea to write things down as far as what to do at home. But I
Right.
think when you bring someone into the and it's important to also, unless they're really, really being belligerent,
Mhm.
I think it's still a good idea to bring a person into the dentist, like
Mhm.
probably 4 times a year rather than
Mhm.
just twice. Minimum
Mhm.
twice, but better
Mhm.
if you can do every 3 months just to keep
Mhm.
on top of things. And
Mhm.
then what
Mhm.
happens is they may actually get a little more used to the dental office. The longer span you're kind of away from it, then it's all new again, and
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
get a little more fearful. So
Yeah.
every 3 months is probably better if you have insurance and the insurance
Yeah.
covers it, then that's good.
Right.
If not,
Right.
then you do the best you
Mm.
can.
Yes, you do the best you can. Do not beat yourself up.
Yeah, don't
we're
beat
only
yourself
we're
up.
only human.
Do the best you can.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, I know we're reaching the end of the time. I wanted to check in with the AARP, our AARP hosts.